Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Creative Leadership Podcast. My name is Arne van Oostrom. The podcast is brought to you by Blue Sky Republic. Today on the show we have Giovanni Ruello. Giovanni is a service designer at Bosch, and he has an amazing story to tell. I'm very happy to have him on the show. I have known him for a long time. I've been following his career, and his story is packed with beautiful Italian sceneries, cities, Berlin. I don't know. I really enjoy listening to his story. He is a visualizer. He's an artist. I'm really waiting for him to kind of create a graphic novel of his story. And you, how are you? You okay? How's this never-ending COVID year for you? I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this summer we'll see us going back to kind of normal-ish kind of life. I'm not really sure what that means anymore, but I am hopeful. So I officially left Design Thinkers, the company I founded 15 years ago. Last week, officially, I signed the documents, I signed the papers, I sold my shares. So I am free, and it feels like that. It feels like freedom and new adventures. I'm doing some really cool projects at the moment. So that's very new to me. And the story that Giovanni is sharing, a lot of that is about, communities and the people that you meet that make the change, that help you grow, transition. And I'm there. I'm right there. I'm meeting new people. I'm getting into new communities. I'm setting up new communities, and I'm really enjoying it. So anyway, here's Giovanni. I hope you really enjoy this conversation. Here we go.
I am Giovanni, and I am a person who is interested in creativity, and I am a person who has perhaps too many interests, and some of those interests are part of my jobs. Some others are just things that I would like to do in the future. I am from Italy, but I moved to Germany around 9 years ago. So I'm also interested in different cultures, different ways of thinking, different way of communicating, different languages. And I like coffee. I like to laugh. And
as a real Italian,
of course, some things are getting into your DNA, right? This is perhaps the first thing that we may talk about. So your provenience, the origin.
Exactly.
This is already a huge differentiator of many other things that happened in your life.
Absolutely. And but the first question, so when I listen to you talk about it being interested in creativity and having too many interests and things you like to do in the future, so there's already quite a few questions I have about this. Yeah. But my first one is you're interested in creativity. Is that something that you've always been? I mean, because it's in a way for me. If you say I'm interested in creativity, it's also like, what exactly are you saying? What does it mean? What does it mean you're interested in creative? What is creativity? Why are you interested in it? What exactly are you saying?
Okay, what I'm saying, I'm saying that I think I had always this bond with thinking new things. I don't know. I'm a person who really enjoy sketching and drawing. This is perhaps this is perhaps my major identifier. What do you do? What do you really like to do? I like to draw. And this was my passion since I was a kid. So creativity is for me to allow you to take a blank sheet of paper and not be afraid of the emptiness of this thing, and just try to attack or just start to use this thing in front of you in a way that you don't know what it is, but perhaps you may have some ideas in mind, but it just then starting doing things and exploring ways of doing this. Could
Not
be,
being afraid of the empty. I like that. Not being afraid of this emptiness, this empty page,
yeah.
and not, because this is something that a lot of people do have. The fear of this empty page. How do I start? I have. People write, people draw. Paint. Where do you start? So how do you conquer? Is that something you had as a kid already? It was easy for you to just start sketch?
Um, I, I can go there in a moment. I think it was also it is the effect of the white blank page, but perhaps it's just also interesting how things works that make us creative, or that this is an underlying curiosity, an underlying element which is connected to creativity. So exploring, understanding how this thing is working. What is this thing in front of me? And again, if I have to think about two things that I've been doing a lot as a kid, drawing and playing with Lego bricks.
Mm-hmm.
I was always interested in how things works and how things looks like. And on one side, I follow both tracks, being myself an engineer, but also a designer.
Mm-hmm.
If we go back to sketching, I think it was the first thing that I've been always doing. Was it talent? Maybe some. We have some faculties, perhaps even if we are very very young. If you can sing, if you can sketch. I'm looking at that with my 5 years old. Understand where are the yeah, where are the skills, where are the barriers in a very um, seed form, in a very
Mm-hmm.
elemental, very very short at the very beginning of something, but you can see it if you observe it. I think what also brought me there was some characteristics that I had when I was born, and one of these is my lack of sight. I was born with a lack of sight, and
What exactly do you mean with lack of sight? I mean, you're not.
I'm short-sighted.
Yeah,
My
but you're not.
eyes are slightly not round as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
So I was short-sighted since I was born. Of course, in my family, it took a while since that was discovered, but I had glasses when I was 4 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And let's say many years ago, glasses for kids were not so fancy as those you have today. So it
Right.
was like a walking with having a scuba mask over your nose for most of the time.
All
And those
right.
kind of things were also pretty expensive. So in a
Mm-hmm.
way, I was a bit slowed down by my family to really do sports, the kind of very physical activities in which
Because of the expensive glasses they were afraid that you might
yeah,
break the glasses.
because of the expensive glasses, and because
Ah,
there was no contact lenses for kids
sure,
or
sure,
something
sure.
like that. So
Yeah.
and I
Mm-hmm.
was not really able to look at balls running when they're far away. So that was a sort of a barrier I had
Mm-hmm.
since I was a kid, and that brought me also to have time in which I was doing something else. I've been
Right.
reading a lot of comics, and I was trying to replicate what I was looking in those comics. And those comics was
Right.
mostly Disney's Mickey Mouse. And
Right.
when I was young, I had this clear vision in mind. I want to be a comic artist. I want to sketch Mickey Mouse. That was pretty clear.
Yeah.
And when I
Cool.
was a kid, and I had to think about the words of Paulo Coelho, a writer, in his book The Alchemist. He says something like, "It's very clear for anyone when we are kid what we want to do in life, because we are not polluted by the life itself. We don't have this kind of um, how can I say frameworks or or
Mm-hmm.
or um, stuff that others are telling us about what is successful, what is not, what you
Right.
should be,
Yeah.
instead of what you would like to be. You know,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I think you ask the kids. We all know what we wanted to do when we were kids,
Right.
and then sometimes life a bit derailed us, and it's always good if we were able to somehow steer and go a little closer to the idea we had about ourselves when we were kids.
Yeah, because you also don't have sort of this idea of all the difficulty. I mean, if you want to sketch Mickey Mouse, I mean, you want to work for Disney, an adult will say, you know how difficult it is to start working for Disney, you know, and you can't just draw a Mickey Mouse because that's illegal, because there's all this, you know, you know,
Copyright infringement.
yeah, exactly. You know, so there's all these obstacles and all that stuff going on, which you collect during your life, which is, I think, yeah, exactly. And then your challenge is, I think, as a human being, to kind of shake them off again and to say, wait a minute, you
Yeah.
know, who's telling me what I should do? You know, I can do anything I want, but it's
Yeah.
difficult because reality is you know, it puts all this you know, and no, now you have a kid and you're responsible,
Right.
you're dad, and you have to make some money, and you know, you have to work at a company, and so there's all these things that's going on. As a kid, you didn't have that, except that obviously you had, you know, your eyesight that was a constraint, but it became a creative constraint in that sense, which is kind of
Perhaps.
interesting.
Yes.
But I want to go back to that moment because I'm interested in that, because you talk about this like as if you know, as if you know, you really can relive that moment of I was different. I couldn't do the sports. Where so I, you know, is that also a moment that you felt? I mean, do you still, can you really remember that? Is that, and can you really remember that? You know, can you link that sort of that childhood to who you are now, and what are the things that you kind of took with you from that moment?
Yeah. Of course, is I can relate to that because I was growing up in a place where most of the kids they just play football. So if you're not good at
And where
football,
was this, where was this?
I was born in Messina, Sicily, which
Ah,
is a city in the located on the Strait of Messina. So it's a very scenographic place, very nice place, and the city is just the tip of Sicily, the closest city to the rest of Italy, which is
right,
also famous for this legend of Scylla and Charybdis, the two monsters that trapped Ulysses in his path towards
right.
Ithaca, towards home. So
Yes.
it's a place that um, has a lot of sea around and it makes a beautiful scenario. The sea, it could be, I've seen it a bit also some sort of a barrier that prevents you're born in an island. Despite the island is big, you have some physical boundaries for you to overcome. And on the other side, of course, southern Italy, that is not the best place offering you opportunities in terms of culture, education, how can I say, inspiration, impulses that you can get from others. So one thing is, I don't know, I don't want to make, I don't want to make comparison, and I don't want to um, um, point my finger too much towards the city I was born on. But if you're born in Amsterdam, mm, you
Of
can go
course.
visit Anne Frank's house. You can go to the Rijksmuseum. You can get some different kind of input in that can determine how you grow. You are
Sure.
connected with a different scene of
Yeah.
whatever you like. If you do spray, if you do skateboard, if you do I don't know, music. But
Yeah.
what if
Yeah.
you are the only one, or what if there is no scene in your city? You will never get in touch with some specific
Yeah.
impulse,
Of
a
course.
specific how can I call it? Yeah, influence. Let's call it like that. Things that can start can make you think, can make you say, "Oh, this thing is interesting." It's like you only eat spaghetti for your life, and then you don't know that even I don't know sushi is also good. You cannot, you don't know it if you have never tried sushi in your life, right? So yes, so there's me, short-sighted in this
On an
dire
island.
straits.
I somehow, yeah. With the image in my head was you're an island on an island.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is physical. Huh? Then we go back to Pirandello, which was one of the Italian's Nobel Prizes for literature. But this is not. We derail too much. But absolutely, your islands into the islands, and each of us is individual, is different.
Yeah.
We are all the same in front of the laws. We have all the same in front of God, perhaps, but we are profoundly unique as people. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe that the kind of the place in which the egg you were born was placed has influence.
Yeah.
And of course, the you as a chick, you need to do your way out of the eggshell, and this eggshell could be also have a different thickness for many of us. So this moment in which you come out and you experience the world can be very different according you, yourself, the family, the place. All of those things, they have an influence. They not necessarily be barriers, but they do influence your evolution. Absolutely, this is one of the things I've learned in my life.
Okay, so there you are. You're a kid with very expensive glasses.
Yeah.
You on an island.
On an island.
You're not able to do sports, so but you like sketching, play with Lego, and you're reading a lot of Mickey Mouse,
right,
comics. So how was this for your family? I'm hesitating to say parents because I turn it more into family because I know family life in it. So compared to sort of me from the Netherlands, compared to Italian family life is totally different, right? Because for me, family life means like me, my kids, maybe a little bit my parents, but that's about it. There's all the other people from my family, I hardly see them, and they have no influence on what's going on. So it's probably very different. So can you sketch me a little bit about what that was like for you as a kid?
Oh, well, a family life in of course, southern Italy. That's we're talking about 150 people, and this is your small circle, right? You can extend it easily to 350. That's
all the birthdays.
Exactly. God. But this is great because you always have people around you. The question is that exactly. I had great memories when I was a kid. But again, being born in that place, no one in this family had the particular creativity interest.
Yeah, so you're in your family. There's not like a father, mother, or some uncle or someone who's like, oh yeah, he was also this artist, or he also liked to draw, or nothing. No, really.
I had my mother. She wanted to do something like that. She was sketched, but if you're born in the middle 50s, your dad could be a bit reluctant whether it's the right way for you to send your daughter abroad or in a different city to study art or architecture. So my mother, she liked to paint. We did some paintings together. I was doing the sketching, and she added a bit of paint on top of this. We did a few times but I was already, I think, 10 or 12. So it happened late at a later moment in time. The person that influenced me probably the most was my cousin, because she had wonderful books, wonderful pop-up books, and she was studying for become an architect. And but she was mostly sketching scenarios and geometrical things. So, but she was the one having a lot of art books, and I had a very strong bond with her. She passed away, unfortunately. But I believe that she was the person that showed me that how cool this art could be. But
Right.
it took me. It was a sort of an interest, but it took me a while then to get an orientation, all in all,
Right.
in what I wanted to do. Because the rest of the family, they were just interested in playing football. No problem with that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
This is something that unites the whole family. And I also like football. I don't follow sport anymore. I lost a bit of love towards football through the years, but I love playing football. I love running against the ball, even though I am no good at that. I have too much talent in my hands and too little talents on my feet. This is what I say. But
Right.
this is probably one thing that I was able to come through. You can enjoy doing something even if you're not good at that.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
enjoy play football,
Right.
and I know that I'm very bad at football.
Well, the same goes
But who
for
cares?
drawing and sketching. I mean,
Right,
even if
right,
you, I mean, this idea that you kind of have to be a master at something in it, to enjoy it. I mean, that's I think
right.
that's a shame, really.
Yeah, but
So
there is this moment in your youth in which you know uh, kids can be also very mean, and they can easily put people in buckets.
hmm,
And if you doesn't have the skills that the group has, it's like you don't really fit into the group
right.
because you're not good at that thing that makes
Hmm,
the group unite, that bonds the group together.
hmm.
Uh,
Is that is that what you've experienced because of the sports or because
yeah, for
you?
example, I
Yeah.
mean, if your friends or someone around you is organizing a match,
Mhm.
you're not
Right.
the first on the list, right?
Oh, right. You're always the last they choose to be on the
Right.
team as well. Is
Perhaps
that
perhaps you're in a odd
who
number,
wants
and that
Giovanni? Hmm.
uh,
You can have him. You can have him. Oh, yeah.
right.
Oh God.
So it was a bit for balancing. It's like the handicap in golf. Those were
Right.
too good. They're just kidding. It was not that harsh, but there is this moment in which
Sure.
you would like to be just
Of
part of
course.
the group,
Yeah, you want to be just like, yeah, of course, like
when
everyone else.
you're very very young, and you're suffering a bit
Yeah.
because of course also sketching, that's a skill, but it's not something that you do all the time, or
No.
you don't do sketching while being outside playing with your kid, your
Yeah.
friends.
Well, sure. And okay, so you're there, you're on the islands, and then what happened? So you're going to school. Your parents might are more like, what's he what's this? His glasses are really expensive, but
Yeah, right.
he's like always doing these drawing all the time, and
Yeah.
so it's. But then what happened? What happened next?
I
By the way,
think my
this
parents
sounds like a wonderful movie. By the way, I'm in my head, I'm seeing this movie. By the way, this
yes,
is also the location
right.
and this whole, this very, beautiful Italian kind of family, whatever. So yeah, go ahead. What happened next in the movie?
A good point. Perhaps we can do a comic out of it. Let's see.
Mm,
Getting inspiration could be something
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see. But what else? I mean, I was interested in things, as I said. So I was playing Lego. I had my uncle. She had um, an encyclopedia about the science and nature, which had the wonderful illustrations. And I was not able to read, but I was just browsing the pages because I really liked the drawings, and so I was interested in minerals, animals, whatever, and there was also nice interest in I don't know, documentaries about nature. This is what so I was looking at, cartoons, of course, and documentaries about nature's animals. This is also was fascinating for me, and so I had good notes at school simply because I was interested in things,
Mm.
and because I had good notes, I always had the worst advice ever. Like, oh, Mrs. Ruello, your child, he can choose any kind of school because he's good. And this is the worst advice
Ah,
you can ever get by a teacher, because does not really encompasses your skills or your proficiency in something. The fact that you have good notes everywhere doesn't mean a thing. doesn't mean that you're a better
Right.
mathematician rather than doctor or I don't know, baker. I mean,
Right.
it could be anything. Your
Yeah.
notes are just I don't know. Perhaps it's just a survival kit that you have as a kid, just to have no problems at school, no problems with my parents, and this is a safe zone.
Yeah.
Safe space.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And because of that, I ended because I was not able to move to I mean, I went through school almost. Yeah, as I said, with good notes. I was not the best in the class, but I was always doing fine. And because of this, and when I ended the compulsory schools and it was time to select the university, I had very little options because I was not able to leave my hometown. Because in Italy you don't have any support from the state or from
Ah.
the region or whatever it is for studying abroad or abroad, studying in a different city, what you really like. Because I mean, it was simple. My mother, she was a housewife. My dad has a regular job, but it was not enough for
Right.
paying me a life in Rome or Milan.
Hmm.
Um, I was still thinking about being a comic artist, and despite everything, I always had this thing. I've been sketching all the time, playing football badly and sketching all the
Mhm.
time. Really, that was my time. And had still cultivated this dream about I would like to sketch because at the end this is the only thing I can do. But already at school there was no real school in my hometown that was really allowing me to cultivate the sketching skills. There was an artistic school teaching fashion design and uh, Goldschmidt. I don't know if this is the English for those who are creating jewels out of
Ah,
gold.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, sure. Yeah.
but they were both, you know, not so interesting for
Mhm.
me. So I stuck to math, I stuck to chemistry and physics, but still cultivated. So once I was trapped within formulas, mathematical formulas, and the other one I was just moving around with my sketches and everything else. And at that point in time, I was really considering how I would like to do some school in which I can learn to sketch comics really professionally, but they were even more expensive than university. And again, then I had that double problem, which was the fee of the school, the private school for sketching, and the rental and the cost for living in a different city,
Mhm.
and that was simply unfeasible. And this is perhaps one of the first moment in life in which you really are hitting hard against reality, saying this is my dream, but I cannot accomplish that. And this is extremely terrible and sad. But but on the other side, I think it's a pivotal moment that in which you start to reborn in a sense.
Okay.
And I can relate to what Cecilia said last time talking about her
All right.
tennis
Yeah.
career, and I can relate to this kind of moment in the life of other friends of mine. So
Yeah.
there is this moment in which, bam, you're smashed really badly from life, like with a chair, like a wrestling, and this is really bad. But happens, and if you look back at those things, you say, okay, it was okay. There was another
Mm.
way, and because but by this moment in which this kind of loss happens, in which this terrible bomb explodes, then other things are activated, other searches, other paths, other um, yeah, other thoughts in a sense. Um, but
Why did you? So I'm just curious because I hear what you're saying, but why? and it's, I like the sort of the, and you can't see that on the podcast, but you're also, your hands are, it's a big thing, and there's a bomb exploding, and or the chair that is kind of knocked to pieces on your back, or there's this terrible thing that's happening, and so that moment where you realize, or at least at that moment, do you think that you cannot achieve this dream of being this comic book artist, right? Because that was the thing, that was your dream.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm thinking, why did you give up on that?
No, and
why would you?
That was the point, and
right? Because why was that? It's just like at that moment, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
right? But it felt like that. But that's why there's this. That's why I'm saying. But at that moment, it felt like something happened very drastically. Really, interesting how you experienced that. And if you look back at that moment now, you were saying that, obviously, like, actually, you look back at this, actually, that's a moment also of new opportunity. Like for Sylvia, she talks about this moment when she kind of she basically, to get this injury, she has to stop professional tennis. But that was her life. That was all she ever knew and wanted.
Right.
And all of a sudden that's gone. What then? What do you do?
Right.
And so for you, there was this moment of, okay, so where do I go? And can you start there? So like, there's this moment. What did you do? What happened?
Yeah. What do I do exactly? This is something that this is a moment in which you lose a bit of trust in life, right? Because we're still growing up with this kind of things. Yeah, you can do whatever you want to do, follow your passions and stuff like that. But life could be different sometimes. So what do you do? As I said, I had this other path I was following. I was somehow always pulling those two tracks, building those two tracks in parallel. And they were, in that moment, I thought, oh, this is going to diverge one from the other. But still, because I was good at school and because I was not able to leave my hometown, then I entered university, and I took something very, very light and creative, which was engineering, electronic engineering, and this is where I got graduated. So I had this strong pulse into engineering as well. But engineers, they are creatives, if you like. So they are thinking about how technology can solve our life. So this is extremely creative, if you like. But of course, it's a different kind of creativity, because in that kind of creativity, there is always one solution to the problem you are exploring. Right. While the beauty of a piece of paper is that you can always start again, and there is no right way of doing that. It is just your way of doing that.
It sounds like a very good combination of two ways of thinking.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. But I believe perhaps my DNA was more of the artistic kind rather than the engineering kind. But as you said before, I didn't give up. I took a break with my dream, but I said, oh, but I like drawing anyway, so I keep drawing. And while I was drawing, there was something interesting in my city, because there was, for the first time, one training, one comic drawing course happening, and it was like water in the desert. It was fantastic for me. It was just I think it was 6 months. We only met on Sundays. And we learned about how to write stories, how to improve our technical skills, and it was the greatest thing that I was able to accomplish in my hometown. And what I was missing, important part. 1 year after I started university, then I also realized that there was a training, a vocational training for graphic design in my hometown running, and I applied. So for 1 year and a half, I was studying at the university and doing the vocational training in graphic design, which
at the same time.
Yeah.
All right, sure.
Not that my notes at the university were very good, but I was anyway having this kind of creative support.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you get like a dolphin. You need your oxygen so that you can then
Yeah.
dive into the sea.
Yeah. You were so hungry for kind of feeding that hunger
Right.
for that part in your life and in your in your talent basically that didn't result to me because you could say wow that's a lot that's like but at the same time and you weren't playing football anyway so
Right.
so what else can you do you just go no but seriously it's interesting that so here's a kid that is somehow you know held back because you're on an island and you can't study abroad or in another city or because that's too expensive. But any opportunity that you see get there's there, you kind of yes, yeah,
Absolutely.
God, yes,
It
that's
was real
something.
hunger.
Yeah, it was awesome, nice, good picture to have in your
Yeah.
head. That's wonderful. So okay, so you're also doing that and then you doing the comic strip kind of
Right.
course and all right and that kind of but that should have I mean that would light the little fire again and you're inside of you
Exactly.
right
Exactly. That was the problem, and
yeah
that
exactly like
ignited the
maybe
fire again because I had time wise. I mean, I did the graphic designer training, and then 2 years later or 3 years later, I did the comics drawing course. And by those two moments, I got in touch with other people having also my same interest.
mm-hmm.
So I got connected into larger groups. Was
Right
no Facebook around back in the days. That says a bit about my age.
mm-hmm.
But there were news groups and newsletters
All right
and forums, and then I was able to get part of this thing. And for 1 year and a half, it was a great movement. We were connected with other people in other cities of the island, Palermo, Catania, and we founded the group, the group Trinacria, which was an older name for Sicily, and we had sketching session together. We had exhibitions. We wanted to
oh
publish
wow
stuff together. And I was exposed to the talent of other guys, which were my same age, but way more proficient because they were born in a different place, in a different tag, in a different context. And I realized, hey, actually, I can sketch. And they were also saying, hey, you really good hand in sketching. But now there's the difficult part. In order for you to get a pro, you need to draw every day. You need to draw like hell, 8 hours a day. You need to draw. If you do that, if you get more acquainted with the perspectives and anatomy, body movements, and everything, you can do it. But you really need to take this time for doing that. And of course, there was the ignition, there was the fire, and I tried to sketch as much as I could. And I had some publication. I think I can say I was a, I don't know, semi professional, not yet a professional, but in that specific time, I really was investing a lot of time to sketch. And it's great because it's a skill. You get an improvement.
mm-hmm.
You can see your improvement. And despite people are correcting you, saying, this is not good, this line is too thick, this is too thin, think about proportion. If you don't know how to sketch hairs, sketch more hairs so that you get acquainted to the lines with whom you represent hairs. And I was really following that. And as I said, I had some small publication, nothing astonishing, but it was a great feeling for me
Mm-hmm.
to have this kind of little work promoted. And in the meantime, I was still struggling with university, saying, shall I continue? Shall I stop? And then again,
Yeah.
life smashes you with a chair because my dad, he had health issues, and he suddenly had to stop working. And for a moment, then it was really problematic because there was the chance that I had to quit everything that I was doing and go to work to sustain my family.
Right.
That was pretty scary, but luckily it solved that. It was not so. This very gray scenario didn't happen in that form, but nevertheless, the finances of the family, they were not really really good. So we were average family. We as a kid, we had everything we wanted, everything we asked, we got it. So my parents were extraordinary in this. But yeah, now it's you're mid-20, and you're trapped between, again, things that you would like to do and things that you must do, perhaps. And due to the situation, I decided, after a few sleepless weeks, that I perhaps I wouldn't have the time, that huge amount of time, for getting a pro comic draw artist, and then that I had to rush my engineering study in order to find a job as soon as possible. That was the only way forward. And I was anyway thankful, because I didn't have to quit university in order to go and find me a job and maintain my family. So in the sense, I felt myself so lucky that I had some motivations to complete my study in engineering. But again, this fire was always there in the back. Time is a gentleman, and then you make peace with those moments and with yourself. But I never stopped drawing, really, since then. It was clear I will never be a professional comic artist. But on the other side, it was like football. I like doing this. It's part of my happiness, and I don't care if I will be famous in making a life being a comic artist.
Sure. But in football, there is this this moment, and I played football. Not on a very high level or anything. I was quite good at it, but always amateur. However, there's this moment in life that you reach an age that you say, I will never be a professional football player. This is because I'm basically too old. Once you're kind of hit 30 and you're still not a professional, I will never play for the national team. That's basically that's one of those moments in life, like, oh, but I'm too old to become a professional football player. It's interesting, a moment in life. However, I mean, drawing, you can be 80 and become a professional comic strip artist. That's not a dream to give up. That's why we ever give up on that dream. There's no way you should ever tell yourself you won't, because you will be. You're young. You can be the most famous comic book star. There's actually quite a few examples of people started when they were in their 40s and very successful, right? So I think the best comic book artists are actually a little older, because they are way more subtle in their storytelling. Anyway, that's just me. But
exactly, there are some success stories, but again, those are inspirational stories. But my life is not their life, and
maybe
right. So
okay, we'll get there. Why this? All right, so
we get there, but perhaps exactly what was the I saw. I tell you, I don't know, because I saw the effort that the other guys that were part of this group of sketchers had, and some of them, they were really able to focus on just sketching. Some of them were hired by Marvel Comics. Some of them they make a life out of this. They've been, and despite, it was interesting, an interesting language, because despite I thought I was better than them back in the days, 20 years ago, now, due to the amount of hours they have spent on their practice, you see the difference.
Sure.
They are creating masterpieces, and I am, perhaps I'm good at quick sketching. This is what I do when I do my sketch notes or my live sketch noting, stuff like that. So this is a different thing. But it
Okay.
makes me happy, and this is the most important thing. um
Okay. But you are
Perhaps
now,
I didn't
you're,
have the stress of making a life out of this, so it's even
who knows?
positive things.
Well, yeah, you don't know. You never know what would have happened if you would have quitted university and would have said, "No, I'm going to pursue this." You know, it could have. You know, well, you don't know. You don't know what would have happened. But however, just we'll go back because you have so you finished university.
Mhm.
Uh, you're an engineer. At least you graduated. You have your diploma,
Right.
and now what happens?
Now what happens exactly? It happens that I had to find myself a job as quickly as possible,
Right.
because again, the financial situation was not that great.
Right. And
And
you are someone, so again, Italian family life, because in the Netherlands, for me, it was like, I'm going to pay for my parents. What do you mean? I would, by the way, me personally, I would, but it's not like a logical thing. Like the financial situation of my family is not the financial situation of me personally
right.
when I go and have a job. But is that different for you? Because are you finding a job also because you need to take care of the family as well? Or
That was not the case,
okay.
likely. But of course, there would have been the great thing for me and for my family as well, that I
Mm.
got financial independency. So they didn't have to
Right.
take care of me anymore,
Okay.
in the
Good
sense.
point. Yes. Okay, got it.
So
Yes.
not that I had to pay for their expenses, but it was a relief that
Of
they
course. Yeah.
hadn't me anymore on the bills. So
Right. So that pressure, that was the pressure you had. You okay, and then so you're going to look for a job.
right.
What happened?
And again, everything happened so quickly that I really hadn't time for getting an orientation, saying, okay, what shall I do right now? So I applied systematically any kind of possible job, and I ended up working as a business consultant in the area of service management, which at the
Right.
beginning was a pretty struggle, because I had to do things that I was not really prepared for, because there was a complete detachment within university and the work area.
Sure. Yeah.
But the good thing, and this is something I realized later on, is that I was pushed a little bit already by life in the area of something that is now my current job.
Yeah, I can see the contours emerging if it's service management. Although service management obviously is not service design,
Right.
but there is an understanding of service and somehow delivering services and
Sure.
service agreements and the likes. But can you give me a little example of what you were not prepared for? Was there something that you like? Ooh, so
Yeah, I mean, the way you deal with your customer, the way you deal with the job itself, the kind of preparation. At a certain point in time, someone was expecting that I was able to code, but I never learned coding. There
really
was no coding in my track of study, so it was always for me pretty difficult for me to get an orientation within coding, uh, in that sense. And
And can you tell me a little bit about what is service? So, what is service marketing? What is that?
yeah, so service management
Oh,
is
sorry, service
exactly
management. Sorry, service management. What is service management?
service management is anything that happens once the service is designed and implemented. So once the
Which
service is
is
up and running, this is the DevOps of services,
mm-hmm,
right? And we were working in internet platforms
mm-hmm,
and value-added services on top of internet platforms.
mm-hmm,
So the platforms which are allowing your household to connect with the internet, so the
mm-hmm.
systems behind, but also all the services that you can offer on top, like voice over IP, IPTV, the first streaming of football matches on your phone, stuff like that. And it
Mm-hmm.
was already 15 years ago. So I mean, there was back in the days there was still the national telecom, Italian telecom already offering a lot. Whatever we have today already in Netflix. This is nothing new, but there already 15 years ago in a way that was not user friendly. I have to say.
Sure.
Because I learned a lot in those 5 years in which I was working in service management about how a service should not be.
Right, exactly.
Because there was no clue about user research. There was an engineering saying, "Oh, those are the features, and this is how we roll it." Some UI designers trying to make this customer interface a little fancy. We never done user-centered design things. And the few times that I had to call people in order to analyze their problems at home, they've been screaming and insulting me from the top of my head to the tip of my fingers because they were so annoyed by the technical problems they had that it was wow, one moment like, "Oh, wow, what is this? People are so angry. What is that we're doing wrong? But we're working like hell. We're working overnights for making the service running. But what is the problem?" I didn't really knew what was the problem since I ended up learning about service design. And that happened because in my curiosity. I was an island on an island, and I was always looking at what is on the other side of the sea.
Because you were still on the island.
Yeah.
This
I
all
moved this
happens.
island. I'm still my island.
Yeah.
It is probably a bit larger, a bit more fatty, but still my island. There are less palms on it, but it is still my island. And I joined a international association of students of Europe. IAJ is the name.
Yes, I know.
And they were organizing exchanges all over Europe. So I entered the local antenna. So we were hosting students from all over Europe, but I also moved or attended other activities abroad. And in one of those, I ended up in Helsinki, Finland, for 3 wonderful weeks. And one of the local organizers was Ksenia Avetisova. Ksenia, she was interaction design at Fjord in Helsinki. Fjord, the design agency, now Accenture Interactive.
Yes.
And in those weeks, I remember that we had this kind of exchange. What do you do? And she said, "Oh, well, actually, I design apps. I this kind of things. It's pretty creative. It's pretty new. There was iPhones were not there out there. It was before iPhones.
Still Nokia. Released. This is where Nokia was still
right.
King.
Probably they were still doing a lot for Nokia.
Yeah.
But it sounds so cool for me that someone is like envisioning this kind of new digital products, and I kept in touch with her, and she was one of the persons that I've been contacted with when I was a bit frustrated. It was 2010, saying, everything here is it's a job that doesn't really fit to my interests, and I'm learning a lot, of course, but it's a bit frustrating because you are here, you need to do firefighting, but you cannot really change anything. I really would like to find something more creative. And I remember that I wrote her, and she said, we are starting this new practice, service design. Why don't you have a read about this thing? And I've been browsing the web, and there was very little. I think it was 2010, 2011. There was very little information with regards to service design. There were a few blogs. A lot of things were starting, but no real. It was still invisible. So I thought there was something very secretive internal in creative agencies. And that was the moment in which I realized that this thing was out there, but nothing more than this. Another pivotal moment was where I left the company, and I moved to Germany. And again, those 5 years were not lost. because they were a bit
Sure.
painful for me because I didn't really
But
felt I fit into this job, but I have learned a lot. And I was able to live in Rome. This is the place where I moved right after the university. I've been able to live in Rome for 5 years. I was still able to do very little gigs in my sketching. I earned a little bit of money for my sketches for
hang
the
on,
first
hang on,
time.
hang on. We missed that.
Yeah, right.
We missed the moving to Rome part.
Right. That was exactly right after the university. When I got graduated, the first
That's a
job that I
big
got.
thing. That's a big. You can't just skip over that.
You're right.
You moved off the. I mean, you might be still the island, but in Rome. Now you
Yeah,
were the island in Rome, but you were off the. You're not the island on the island. You moved off the island.
right.
That was
I moved the island on the mainland.
yeah. How so? Well, just I mean, just quickly, no, because of that is a big moment because moving away from your hometown was that how did that feel? Was that exciting? Was it like it's happening?
It was exciting at the end because you have this great feeling that you can restart. And for me, a kid born in the suburbs, so to say, in the south, it was amazing. I had exhibitions, concerts,
Exactly.
movie theaters,
Everything. You're in Rome.
Japanese restaurant. I was able to eat
Yeah.
sushi for the first time.
Listen,
So
all roads lead to Rome. I mean, there's a reason
exactly.
for that.
So exactly. So it was the place to be, and because I was interested in ancient history, Renaissance. I mean, Rome has everything, and
Yeah, it's amazing.
this is the great thing of Rome is that you always feel you're on holidays during the weekend. The problem is from Monday to Friday, where you need 1 hour and a half to commute before you get to
Right.
work.
You're the shitty job.
And a
You're
shitty job. Exactly.
doing service management. Jesus,
Exactly.
Like, but you're in Rome
Yes,
with it,
I was
in a
I was
city
in
job.
Rome. I was in Rome, and Rome is definitely an inclusive city. I mean, it's still I would say still a southern Italy. Is a very very welcoming and open and I had a few friends which moved there already. So I was not completely alone, but nevertheless, it was not easy because you never prepared. I mean, to you may have cutted your, or I mean, you may have left your nest for a while, but you know that this is not definite. I also did Erasmus when I was at the university. I lived 6 months in Thessaloniki, Greece. It was another great experience, but you know that this is going to be over. This is
Right.
like something cool, but it will finish at a certain point. Leaving home, cutting, really putting your everything that you believe it's relevant for you into luggage pieces, and take this boat, because you need to leave the island. You take a
Yeah,
boat
yeah.
to
Good
the
for the
mainland.
movie.
This
Good
is
for
a
the movie. This is good for the movie.
very slow moment. The detach. It's not like I enter a plane and goodbye.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is like this is how the longest half an hour in your life in which you are on this ferry boat for crossing this 3 kilometers and a half, looking back, seeing your hometown disappearing, getting smaller, getting used that you'll see this place only from far away. This is another pivotal moment, and you will really it's a very slow detach. And I
Yeah.
remember that I even one thing that I brought with me was a little bit of salty water, seawater, in a small glass.
Wow.
That was like the thing. I really miss that. And I also learned that after a while, this water get really rotten, and it stinks like hell. So it was a very poetic idea, but there was not a good idea.
Yeah.
And so I had
Well,
to
some
I had to
poetry
throw it
there too.
away. I
Yeah.
had to throw it away at a certain point because it was disgusting.
Well, there's a nice poetic
Yeah,
element to
right,
that too,
right.
right? So it is sort of this
Uh,
moment you cannot preserve the past. is
Right.
that you cannot. You can't hold on to it.
Exactly. You cannot preserve the past. The past is important because it it, it brought us somewhere.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to realize that it's the present that is really really important, and the way you are today, the way you act today, will influence your future. But it's
Yeah.
also a sort of a comforting thought to look back and do this exercise, Steve Jobs alike, try to connect the dots, and realizing that there is a connection with those dots, and
Yeah.
everything that you're doing now, it's a sum of other things that happened
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
you before.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
It's a very good exercise to do in order to find the German calls that the red line,
Right.
this
Yeah.
red line
Yeah.
that's connecting things.
Yeah.
And yes, so in Rome, I was away. I was not that far away because it's central Italy. Is not like, oh my God, Milan is still too far away. I still had the chance to run away and visit go back to on the island from time to time, even because the health of my dad deteriorated a lot, and he passed away in 2010. And of course,
Oh,
this was
really?
also a not a nice thing. This thing happens, and it was all of course drama,
Yeah. Of
big
course.
thing. But perhaps there was also the event that triggered other decisions, and the most important decision was 2011. Pardon, it's already 10 years ago, and that triggered the decision to cut. Cut. This is the moment in life and you think, okay, like I always had to think about this Gandalf quote, um, saying, dear Frodo, the only thing that we can do is what to do with the time which is granted to us. There is no other way. You may think about the past and be trapped into this dream about something that will never return, and on the other side, be obsessed about the next things that you need to do. But at the end, the reality is just to try to make the best possible use of your time. Not that I'm a wise guy. I might sound wise, but I'm not wise at all. I procrastinate a lot. So, but there are moments in time in which that you decide you need to cut. You need a radical cut.
Yeah.
The
Listen, if
great thing,
you're quoting Gandalf, you're really, you're a smart guy in my books.
right?
Yeah.
I'm a nerd guy. This is why. But one of the other great things that happened when I was in Rome is that I met my wife. And my wife, she's half German, half Dutch, actually. And
really?
And then we had she had to move back to Germany, and I said, I have no reasons to stay here.
That's an interesting parallel with the Sylvia's story as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's also the reason why she ended up in Germany
yeah.
as well.
No, I really had no interest. I mean, I loved Rome. My wife loves Rome more than I do. But I mean, if you just spend so many hours at work and your work is not really satisfying, then
yes, of course.
Then there is no really real reason to. You can find another way for getting the same amount of money, but doing something more nice. And
but
this
moving
is why,
to Germany is I mean, it is a I don't know how big that is. I mean, so Sylvia in a previous podcast talks about the cultural differences. She said it's easier for her to adapt to a German culture than it's for a German person to adapt to an Italian lifestyle. It was kind of I thought an interesting way of thinking about it, but it is sort of a leap. It is a big leap, and you need a job, right? So because you still have you quit your job. I mean, did you say I quit? How did you quit? You
quit. It's a great feeling. I wish that everyone should quit once in his life.
Yeah, really?
It's a great moment.
What was the moment? Can you describe that moment that you
put your signature in this paper and then you deliver? You call your manager saying, I've been thoroughly thinking about that, and I have realized that I need a different challenge. Of course, you put it in a very polite way,
Sure.
but it was surprisingly positive, and said, I have no reason to hold you back if you don't want to stay.
Yeah, of
So
course.
and there was perhaps what I was feared was I know, please, we take you, we give you a little increase, and then you stay. It
You're
luckily
like,
didn't happen. And so that was a great relief.
yeah,
It was a great relief, at least job wise. Personal wise, I mean, a lot of my friends are still in Rome,
sure.
and I enjoy visiting the city and going there anytime I can. But I think it was the right move.
Because
And
you moved to Germany. Where to Germany?
I moved to Berlin,
Right.
because
Which
this is
is
where the place in which my wife was hired. And it was I agree with Silvia when she said it's easier for an Italian to adapt to the German life, because you can adapt to you know you're more open, you're more flexible, you always need to find your way through.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, it's in Italy, it's like if you are into sailing, it's a match race. You have the other, yeah, a float, a buoy, this kind of things that marks some place on the sea. In Italy, Italy lifestyle is that's the buoy.
Yeah,
Find your way, fall, use the
yeah,
wind, read through
yeah,
the winds in order to get there.
yeah.
While perhaps in continental Europe is more, everything is processed. There is a process for getting to the buoy and bringing
Right.
it back. So if you're used to this a lot of structure, because everything is streamlined, is organized, there are no barriers
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
many things that you need to do in a regular life, then it's way easier for an Italian to adapt.
Sure.
And while for a continental European, going to Italy could be, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know,
all
it's crazy.
chaos. It's chaos.
Exactly.
I have great experiences in Italy, by the way. I like chaos, and that's why I like it. I like
Yes.
Italy. Uh,
Yes.
but just one little anecdote about Italian chaos, as for a Dutch person at least, totally not understanding what's going on. We were going to Elba, and at the wrong time, because at the time that all Italians went to Elba, and so there was a traffic jam of 5 hours, and we needed to catch this boat. So in my structured brain, there's this boat, and I need to get on the boat. And if I miss the boat, I can't get to the island. So anyway, we were in this traffic jam, 5 hours traffic jam, and we were okay, but we kind of got the boat. But then going back, so it was the week after we were told that, so all the Italians had this holiday, and so we thought that when we would go back, they would also all go back. So we would be in this traffic jam to the boat again. So I got up really early, woke the kids up, I'm like, get her, like it was 4 o'clock in the morning or something really weird. Wake up the kids, pack the bag as real tourists. And we go like, went on the road with the car, no cars, no one was there. Like there's no traffic. Oh, we're so we beat the traffic, but there was really no one. So we got to the boats, totally empty. But there were boats, and we were like 2 hours early. So, and here's the thing that I don't, as a Dutch person, just don't get, is like there were different brands of boats, right? And there's this port and there's these boats and they're going. So there's not like, there's no cars, hardly any cars, but there is boats. So my wife gets out of the car and goes to the booth and says, well, we're 2 hours early, which is, by the way, it's interesting because she has a little Italian in her
Mhm.
gene, in her DNA pool. So I think that's why she went, because I would not even have asked. She said, can we get on one of the boats earlier? Because my brain is like, well, why? Because I have a ticket for this particular boat, which has a number and a name and a brand, and the brand boat is not even there. And they said, oh, sure, just drive on. Fine, go. And like, what? What do you mean go? And then we drove and we just got on a boat with a different brand. And I got on the boat and we went off the island. I said, how the hell is that working for them? What if have I took it? Did I take a place of someone else, or how did that work financially work? I paid for this. I don't understand. So this is, to me, this Italy is like so many of those moments, like, what's going on? What are we waiting for? Or what's happening? Or can I just, like, what? I just, anyway, so.
Yeah, yeah. I
That,
mean,
in Germany, I get it. In Germany is like, it's clear.
this
It's
is
like,
the amazing things of Italy. Anything can happen. You can be
yeah, it's
positively or
awesome.
negatively surprised
Yeah, both. But I love
same
that.
time.
It feels like this, it's almost a relief, like, oh, you can just I was like, oh, okay. And it's not always positive. but yeah, again,
Yeah.
but for you to get to Germany, Berlin, it's obviously, I mean, I grew up with this feeling as a Dutch person. It stems from the war. I'm sorry, people from Germany, but it's the war thing. My parents were born in the war. So I'm one of those generations that is still this, I grew up with this feeling of Germans are bad people, right? It's not true. I don't believe that anymore, but I did grow up with this feeling. But we always said, I don't like Germans. I don't like Germany, but we love Berlin. Because that's not Germany. Like, it's really weird in my brain. When I was a kid, that was really clear. There was Germany and Berlin, which was different because Berlin is not. And I grew up with when the Russians, with the still the wall was still there and the whole thing. So we had a lot of sympathy for Berlin, but it's still this idea that's not Germany, and Germany is obviously there's so many different parts of Germany,
Right.
but Berlin is maybe not the most difficult start to get into Germany. But
I don't know. There are always hurdles, because on one side you have I don't know. It was extremely easy for me as a newcomer to get all the information I needed in order to get a health insurance or to get registered to the local
sure. Yeah.
to the local place to buy myself to get myself the documents I needed. Of course, as a European, and on top of that, having my girlfriend, which is mother tongue, of course, that helped me a lot. So
Yeah.
I was extremely lucky. But still, you're land in a different world, and I moved from a city like Rome, which is the eternal city where everything is the same since 2000 years, to a city like Berlin, which is
Right.
completely different.
Yeah.
This is the dynamism of Berlin. You cannot really imagine. In Berlin, you're overkilled of things that you could do because there is so much, from the mainstream things to the coolest thing that are only happen in a small pub where only 20 people can access. And then you may have fantastic gypsy music, which I was not aware of. Berlin, it's a you feel the world in Berlin. Things that in Rome is still belongs to this Roman way of thinking. People in Rome are really fond of them being Rome. So again, islands in the islands, you can find them everywhere.
You're right.
Well, Berlin, it's the islands are really grow exponentially because you can in Berlin you can, no matter what is your interest, you can find your community over there.
Yeah.
So in this sense, yes, there are perhaps less barriers for a foreigner to land over there, but there are challenges anyway. There are cultural challenges that you have anyway because you think differently, you act differently, you expect differently, different reactions from people. Language is a barrier, of course. I was not able to speak German when I moved to Germany, and food, weather, everything. Still was amazing because I was able to again explore this place differently. This is a reset. I can do what I want to be here. I can explore new things, culture in Berlin. I mean, if you're interested in culture, Berlin, it's amazing. This is fantastic, and the amount of art that you see in just one lamp post in Berlin, this is already fantastic. I mean, that's such a creative city. Of course, it's a large city. It's a not welcoming city. If you're born in Italy, you're used to this beauty that you see in streets and places in weather. This is not Berlin.
Hmm.
In Berlin, you may fall in love with corners, but not
Yeah.
with a district or
Right.
with a yeah, place. But has different advantages. I mean, again, it's unique. This is the fact. Each place
Mhm.
it's unique in its positive and negative things.
And
Um,
what did you sort of, because you needed a job or you
yeah.
wanted to have, so did you find a job in Berlin?
Mm. I found some jobs, but the back then it was clear to me that I had to do this transition towards this more creative job,
Right.
and that's why I wanted to try to get into service design.
And how did that
It was end
happen?
of 2012, so it
Right.
was early enough, so to say. There were not many service designers out there, and Berlin provided me a great environment for grow
Yeah.
up as a service designer over there,
Yeah.
because through my friend in Fjord Helsinki, uh, she said, "Okay, you should talk to my colleagues over there because they also had an office in Berlin,
Yes.
close to Checkpoint Charlie." And I spoke to her colleague, Tomoko, who was a Japanese living in Berlin, who is, I believe. Um, and she said, "Yes, we are starting also this practice here. By the way, you should talk to my colleague Manuel." Manuel was Manuel Grossman, which is one of the founders of Service Design Berlin, the first Service Design Berlin. He and Catherine and Olga and Martin Jordan, which is now at the governmental services, digital service in London. Catherine, she's one of the most influential people under 40 in Germany with regard with her work that she's doing in the area of phone, um, and for I would say Catherine with her work in governmental
Hmm.
services, and Manuel, which is a person that I'd like to call a friend. He was especially the key person in my introduction towards service design. They did the jams. They did 3 times in a year. They were the jam organizer. They had their service design drinks in which they've been exploring the specific aspects of service design.
Right.
But the focus was mostly on the tools back in the days, but and then discussing about the practice. All in all, the great thing of Berlin is that you have those creative agencies, and those creative agencies organizes a lot of invites a lot of guests. So in these 2 years I was spending in Berlin, I had the chance to listen to famous service designers. I can recall Patrick Wachtelbaum. I can recall meeting in person Mark Sticktorn and also Adam Lawrence. And by doing this, there were people that were in the city from time to time. You were able to listen to them. You were able to explore, to talk to them, and that was an extreme helpful way. You were able to feel the vibe of this community. It was really active, really willing to build this thing, to make this thing visible. And the lucky strike I did have is that Adam and Marcus and Mark, they launched their first this is service design doing masterclass in Berlin, and I was able to be there, and there was again a tremendous pivotal moment in my career as a service designer, because I was there. I was there. I mean, this guy, they were written the book. They were the founders of the jams. They were already. I mean, I felt so blessed by the
Mhm.
fact that I was in the room with them. Um, and again,
Cool.
that was 2013, and by that moment I've been trying to acquire feeling about the practice, and was not Berlin back in the days was not the very um, the place where you were able to encounter a job easily. There was a lot of small gigs here and there, but nothing really long term or able to provide you enough money to earn a living.
Right.
And still, according to my CD, I was an engineer. I was not a designer, and so I encountered some barriers over there. But again, I thought it was okay. This is part of the game because I don't have a portfolio. I have never done this kind of things before. So on one side, I was trying to brainstorm or services on my own. And one was, how do you recruit enough people to play football if you're moved in a different city? There was a digital platform connecting pitch owners with people willing to play football. And I just put it in my portfolio, just showcasing my thoughts about service design. I remember that
Awesome.
Manuel helped me a lot in gathering, brainstorming how to make this concept more round. But on the other side, I was saying, hey, but I did service management and I can sketch.
Yeah.
Again, if you need to design the services, you need to design stories. I can think in stories. I can sketch. I can I can do storyboarding, which is still one of the most powerful tools that we have as service designers.
Exactly.
And so that helped me in finding, how can I say, having a right to play. In the meantime, I was able to try other things. I've been teaching sketching for the first time in the service science factory in Maastricht. I did it for a couple of times. It was a side gig, but nevertheless, I sat down on my desk and I thought about, okay, what is that I would like to tell somebody else to help them increase their confidence towards being more visual, to add more sketching in their life, and those things, they were little things, but they created some waves, so to say. And then you start to try to connect those dots again. Of course, you need to do it in a way in which when you apply to some company, everything looks like um, coherent and exciting and sexy for them. Still, there was a beginning, and I had no real track of study, saying I'm graduated in Cologne International Design School or stuff like that. But I started to collect certificates, because the Germans, they like certificates anyway a lot, and a bit of experience, so that I was able to little by little to get invited at least to the job interviews. Of course, I had lots of no, but despite it was not nice, it's part of the game. And then I started to apply outside Berlin, and it was the moment in which I also applied to this one of the first service design open positions that I was finding on the job openings, and that was my current job in Stuttgart at Bosch.
Right.
And I just applied, and perhaps there that my engineering background was as an asset and not a barrier.
So. Yeah.
Because that helps me a little bit in trying to understand the technical discussions that such a technology giant is usually starting from. If there is anything that they always you work a lot with engineers, and they always look at feasibility, and they don't really get about desirability or necessarily about
I think
viability.
you are in that sense in a unique position, that you have your skills as an engineer. You're also working in service management, sort of the practical and if you're working at Bosch, it's especially you're Stuttgart, and it's like really hardcore Schwabish,
Engineering, yeah.
engineering culture. But if you can at least speak that language, you can bridge these
Right.
worlds. Whereas someone who has no clue about that language, might not survive. So I think so. In a way, you were almost, you didn't know that, and it wasn't on purpose, but you were kind of shaping yourself as the perfect fit for companies like that. So
Yeah, exactly. Not that I knew that, but at the end, that being having such a T shape or a P shape, because I was a bit of designer and a bit of engineer, but not really an engineer, was suddenly for someone was an advantage,
yeah,
because we use usually to how many years,
yeah,
how
yeah,
vertical is your expertise, like we should all be surgeons, I don't know. So how many hearts have you removed successfully from bodies
yeah.
of people? And this is a different thing, huh? um and
Good metrics. How many body parts did you remove?
exactly.
I'm,
um
yeah,
and then I was finally happy that I was able to sit at the table of the service designers,
yeah,
and it took me a while to remove my imposter syndrome, because I was saying, okay, but my experience in doing other things is way longer than doing design. But at the end, um, many things that I've been doing in the past were helping me, supporting me in
yes,
my
of course.
in the job that I'm doing right now. And
Mm.
finally, I'm able to do the, to work as a creative person, to put my creativity on the service of a company, but also the service of myself. And I have a complete, when you do some things that you don't like, time is so slow. Time flows so slowly. You constantly watching the clock, say, "Oh my God, how long will this day last?" And suddenly you are in an environment which is more interesting for your brain, for
Mm.
your the things that you need to do, and days are gone like
Yeah, yeah,
hours are
yeah.
like minutes, and you say, no, 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 it cannot be already over, because I still need to do this and this and that.
Exactly.
Hold
Yeah.
on. But I always interpreted that as a positive sign um, of things,
Yeah.
to have this kind of enjoyment of entering the room, entering the office, entering the having some sort of an excitement, and
Yeah. Exactly.
of course there be there and accept your role as a bit of a pirate, a bit of a orchestrator, a bit of a creative, but for some, just another business analyst at the end. So interesting, anyway, to be there. Interesting also to see how the practice is evolving, and the other questions that are coming to you, because at the beginning the point was, oh no, I want to be a service designer. But now that I'm a service designer, the question is, which kind of service designer
Right.
you want to be?
Yeah.
Because there are so many forms to apply service
Sure.
design in
Which
a
is,
meaningful
yeah,
way. So
exactly. Which is the complexity of it, because you can be so many things within the whole kind of the whole
whole
philosophy of
game.
service design. I mean, yeah, exactly. So is that something you think about towards the future? Is that something you are thinking about? What would be next? What would be sort of
Mm.
or are you more living in the moment?
Good question. Because still I do have my curiosity,
Yeah.
and this sometimes pushes me to try to see other things. So the great thing of working at this large corporation is that I can try to apply this approach to different contexts. So you may do projects for supporting a little bit more the internal transformation. So
Right.
how the organizations design towards their employees, so very much internally. Another point would be, how do we launch an external services for external customers?
Exactly.
Another one could be, more applying different twists to service design for touch points, for strategy, different level of zooming in and zooming out. But at the end, I think there is always one common element, and those are the people. And what I also been trying to reinforce in the last years was my ability to facilitate and my ability to create safe spaces,
Right.
so that you can guide people towards something.
Exactly.
This is something that I really enjoy. But of course, this is just one part of it.
Yeah, but I think that's a natural evolution of service design. People in service design is that because if you start becoming facilitators, because it is about, actually in the end is going to be something around facilitating other people through a creative process or a process of sense making, it becomes a leadership function. And I think that's a natural evolution. We've been talking for a long time. We can talk more, but I do kind of the one thing I've kind of been writing down is what I thought was really interesting, that a lot of your growth or moments in life kind of correlated with communities, sort of getting into new communities. It started with, first of all, family, which is a big community, which is a lot of influence. And then there's this creative community that you developed on the island with the kids from other cities, other parts, which influenced you. And then there was the student association, who kind of then, brought you to another kind of world. And then there's the world of service designers and that creative sect, if you will, of people who then kind of, so when you said, one of the core of what you do is always about people. I think that community, for you at least, is something that kind of, and not only you, I think there's I think it's even, proven by research that you are basically the sort of you're influenced by the people you kind of you gather around yourself, right? So you're the average of the people that you surround yourself with. And so if you want to grow, surround yourself with other people, right? Yeah. So and that can happen, or you can kind of consciously steer towards it and design that. But it's interesting to hear that in your story, that there's every time there's these new communities that you discover and they discover you, and then you kind of move on to another chapter.
Yeah, so this is a compliment for your capacity of observation, because I never have thought about this element, which is a common element on my life, and then this is beautiful, and I think it's a fundamental, especially now, because the game of service design is the game of innovation, and innovative is getting even more and more complex and large. The challenges way more complex than in the past, and I believe that also is a fundamental recipe of succeeding is to find people that can contribute to the cause and share this knowledge together, so that you can create a critical mass of thinking, so you can have a swarm intelligence which is larger than the person in his own. I think that the I don't know, people like Dieter Rams, they are also a heritage of the past. Perhaps we have Johnny Ive, but in the future, everything which is digital, everything that is invisible, everything that is complex, will require a group, a community of people that can then together act for success, for change.
Thank you. Thanks for the interview. I enjoyed it. Thanks for the beautiful story. You have to make that the graphic novel, because that story, that picture of you leaving the island on the boat and seeing the city disappear slowly, you have to draw that. I don't know if you already did that, but that little segment of the story, you should draw that. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And yeah, so thank you very much for that. And yeah.
Thank you for having me, and for having it was a great self-reflection moment. Never done this exercise before. Very useful. And about the ferry boat, you're invited. We can do that together
Ah,
as soon as we can travel again. So this time there will be an Italian with you in Italy, so you wouldn't get trapped
totally.
into
Yeah.
into some translation problems.
Totally, like,
So
where am I?
this
Exactly.
is something
All right.
that everyone should do. Sit on the
Awesome.
ferry boat once.
Awesome. Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.